So yeah, the 4 reasons why people resist change on this journey that we're going on. So not everyone who starts this business with you is going to be there at the end. I'm sure we've had people like in our teams, in our like direct downlines, who have maybe quit on us before, or who we thought were like going to be going pretty far, but then didn't actually manage to stick to their vision, stick to things like that. And one of the main reasons why that is the case is because not everyone actually wants to change. I learned this from Mornings with Nino, right? And he said your new life is going to cost you your old life. So what he means by that is the new life that you want to live, it's going to cost you the life you're living right now. It's going to cost you, sacrificing the things you have in your life right now in order to gain the things that you want in the new life that you want. You're going to have to sacrifice the old you. You're going to have to sacrifice your old habits so that you can actually make way for your new habits to be in your new life. So a lot of people say like the price that you have to pay on this journey, the price you have to pay is essentially the old life you live, the old you, the old unhappy you, the lazy you, the unpurposeful you, the one who didn't want to wake up in the morning, the one who didn't want to put the work in, the one who didn't want to read the books, who didn't want to listen to the audios, the one who didn't want to actually put the work in to get to where they want to be, right? So if that's you now and you notice those characteristics within yourself, that needs to become, you stop being that person, stop associating that person, stop thinking like that person and doing the same actions that that person does, and create this new version of you. Okay, so I'll get into the 4 reasons why people resist change. Actually, give me 1 second. I'm actually going to try putting us on IG live as well to see how that actually goes. So I'll just start that now. Yeah, how's everyone's day been so far? Anyone got up to anything exciting? Let me just set a title.
I jumped on the session this morning. That was all right. It was good. Made some money.
Okay, let's get started. All right, so I will just get started. So the first reason why people actually resist change is because they feel awkward and self-conscious about doing something new. So if this is you and this is something that you do, make sure you take notes on how you're gonna actually change this going forward and how you're actually gonna improve like the habits that it takes for you to get to where you want to be, right? So the first reason is people feel awkward and self-conscious about doing something new. So when people are awkward and self-conscious, it might be because they're just not ready for it, right? They don't want to follow a new routine. They don't want to learn a new skill. They don't want to get outside their comfort zone because they've been stuck in their comfort zone for maybe like 20 years now, for maybe their whole life so far, and they don't want to get out of that comfort zone. So for people to stop feeling awkward and stop being self-conscious and do the thing that's new and do the thing that they haven't experienced before, they have to get uncomfortable, right? So when you are uncomfortable and you feel awkward and you feel like you don't really want to be doing it, that's when it becomes in your conscious mind to do something new. So I'm just going to share this diagram with you. I'll share the whiteboard on here. So put a 1 in the chat if you can see this whiteboard here. Can everyone see the whiteboard? Okay, cool. So we can see the whiteboard. So I'm just going to draw a diagram and copy it into your notes if you want to. But it's basically going to explain how you can stop feeling awkward and self-conscious when you're doing something new, and therefore stop resisting change in your life. Okay, so in this box here, this is your comfort zone. I'm just going to write CZ because I can't bother to type it. So this is your comfort zone here, right? And what most people do throughout their lives, they step out of their comfort zone. They get uncomfortable for a little while, but then what they do is they come back into the comfort zone. So they step out of their comfort zone, get uncomfortable for a little bit, but then they step back into the comfort zone. And what happens is they keep doing this pattern. They keep going in and then they keep going out. So they're basically doing figure eights inside and outside their comfort zone. So what you're essentially doing when you're doing this is literally going through a cycle, staying in the same place. And this is, like we mentioned before, this is when you become stuck. This is when you feel like you really don't know what's going on anymore. So when you're in this position, when you keep getting uncomfortable, but then going straight back into your comfort zone because you didn't like the feeling of being uncomfortable, when you're doing this is because your old paradigm, your old thoughts, the old you that you need to leave in the past is dragging you back to the space where you were before, okay? So when you're being brought back into your comfort zone, make sure you're kind of recognizing this, right? So that's the feeling you're going to get from getting uncomfortable, okay? So you need to go through this feeling. Wait, can everyone still hear me? It says my connection is unstable. Type in the chat if you can still hear me. Okay, cool, it's all good. So yeah, as I was saying, you need to go through this feeling of being awkward and being self-conscious. You need to go through it and stay in the zone of being uncomfortable in order to get the breakthroughs, in order to get the experiences that you need to go through to be able to change and stop resisting the changes that need to happen in your life, okay? So when you come out of your comfort zone, when you come into the unknown zone, which is doing the things that are uncomfortable, this is when you start kind of pushing the limits of what you thought that you could do, and you're getting uncomfortable, and therefore you're actually doing the things that you need to be doing in order to level up, because from the uncomfortable situation, this is where you can learn new things. This is where you're going to experience new ways to think from, and from that is how you're going to level up in your life, okay? I'll just show you the Instagram. If I can turn this around, I don't know how to turn it around, but yeah, this is basically what I was talking about. You're coming in and out of your comfort zone, and you need to stay on the outside of your comfort zone, right? So when you, as I said, when you step out of your comfort zone and you stop going back towards the comfort zone, this is when, you know, your life will change for like permanent, because you stayed uncomfortable for long enough, and then now you start actually living outside of your comfort zone. So when you're living outside your comfort zone, you're going to be constantly doing things that make you uncomfortable. So you're constantly going to be growing. You're constantly going to be learning, you know? So let me just cancel this. So when you eventually, you know, get sick and tired of doing the figure eights in and out of your comfort zone, and you realize that there's actually nothing for you left in the comfort zone, this is when things start to change. This is how you start to implement change in your life, okay? You know, there's a saying that says most people die at the age of 25, but they don't get buried until they are 75. And the reason why that is true is because people constantly go out of their comfort zone only to get drawn back in throughout their whole lives. You know, they settle for what is given to them rather than dreaming and going out and making their own realities, okay? So, you know, there's also another saying, and it's that every single one of us are born looking like our parents, but we die looking like our choices, you know? So what choice are you actually going to make? Are you going to stay comfortable, or are you going to get uncomfortable? I think we've spoken about this before, but like getting uncomfortable, make it part of your daily routine. Do something every single day that makes you uncomfortable so that you can learn from new experiences, so that you can get the new ideas to think from. And through that, you will actually level up, you will actually grow, okay? So there's also something else that Nino mentioned, right? He said that for us right now, and what we're doing, we are literally going out there to break the generational curses. And by doing this, we are obviously going to have to get outside of our comfort zone, because the only reason why no one's broken our generational curses before us is because they haven't been able to stay outside their comfort zone long enough, or they might not have even known how to. Okay, but with what we have right here, we have the means and we have everything that we need to know and the access to the information as well in order to make that choice. Okay, so yes, be grateful for everything you have in your life right now, and especially your parents too, because they did what they could with what they had. They did not necessarily have the information that we have access to. They didn't have the skill sets that we have access to. So make sure that you are using this to, change the way you're living, to in turn change the way your whole family lives, which is going to break the generational curses, right? Because in order for us to change the narrative for our families, we have to change the path. And this path the path that they have all been on before, we all know that they end up working for most of their lives. Again, there's nothing wrong with jobs or anything like that. But it might be because they didn't really know a way that was not that way. But we have access to this other way. So we know how to get out of, the rat race that we call it, right? So we are actually changing the narrative for our whole families because we have a way to get out of the way that is taught to most people. But you have to remember, it's up to us, because no one else can actually change our family's future apart from us. Like, no one else is going to do it for us, because if they were going to do it for us, it would have already been done, and it hasn't been done so far. And one thing that you need to know is that it's not going to happen in your comfort zone. So that's why I'm kind of repeating this point a lot, just to emphasize the importance of getting uncomfortable, of putting yourself in a position to be able to learn from those new experiences in order to grow and in order to learn and in order to level up in your life, okay? So one thing I want you guys to write down right now is a list of everything that makes you uncomfortable. So whether that's anything to do with the business, whether it's anything to do with trading, or anything to do with life in general, just write down whatever makes you uncomfortable. And over the next 6 months of the year, over the next 5 months of this year, make sure you do at least one of those things every single day and just watch the growth that you're going to have. Because if you do these things that make you uncomfortable, you are going to get new experiences and new ways of thinking and new results. Because in order to get what you haven't had before, you need to do what you haven't done before. If you do what's on this list that you're going to make and do all of the things that make you uncomfortable, then you're almost 100% guaranteed to have breakthroughs throughout your summer. So that was the first reason why people resist change, is because they feel awkward and self-conscious about doing something new, and they don't really want to get out of their comfort zone. Okay, now the second point that the second reason why people don't want to, grow and level up is because they always focus on what they have to give up instead of maybe what they're going to receive. So write that down. People always focus on what they have to give up. So when people are focusing on what they have to give up, they're not understanding that you have to give up something in order to go up. You have to give up time. You have to give up relationships, friends, sleep, going out partying, wasting your time, negative family and bad habits. You have to give up to go to the next level. Every new level, they say, comes with a new devil. And with that, you have to give something else up. You have to sacrifice. You have to do something else that you haven't been doing already in order to be able to get to the next level. It's part of the game that we're in. You're going to have to give something up to get to the next level. Sleep is a good example, but currently it's something that I'm struggling with quite a lot. But a lot of people are like Akif, for example, say, why are you sleeping 8 hours a day if you're not where you want to be? You have to give up the things that are holding you down, because they are essentially acting as anchors in your life. Okay, so you have to be able to give up these things that are holding you down so that you can go and you can bounce back from the weights that are holding you down, so that you can reach the new levels. you have to sacrifice for what you want, otherwise what you want will become the sacrifice. This is something that I'm sure a lot of us have heard before, but really actually think about it, because you have to sacrifice what you want, or what you want will become the sacrifice. Or you have to sacrifice for what you want, or what you want will become the sacrifice. So for example, hang on, let me just let Ashley in. So yeah, you have to sacrifice for what you want. So for example, sacrificing hours of sleep in order to, you know, get up and do your morning routine and plan your day out and do what you need to do during the day in order to, you know, propel you forward to actually getting the results that you want. Otherwise, the sleep might be what you're having to sacrifice later. You know, if you don't sacrifice your sleep now to get you to where you want to be, then ultimately it's going to take you even longer to get to where you want to be, because you didn't sacrifice something now. So your goal ultimately is going to be the sacrifice if you don't sacrifice the things you need to now to get to your goal. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, that's what it takes to, you know, get what we want, because we have these big goals, right? But we're not going to get it just by wanting it. We have to do the things that people aren't willing to do. We have to do the things that most people are not willing to do in order to live the life that most people can't live. You know, it's temporary sacrifice for a permanent gain. You know, people are afraid to give up a lot of things, but you just have to be able to let it go, because ultimately that's what it takes on this journey, right? You have to make space for the things that are coming up in your life, and to make space for the new things, for the new blessings, to be able to bring them into your life, you have to sacrifice and give up some of the old things that are in their place. Think of it that way, right? So let's say you have a big goal, right? Let's say you want to get a new car, for example, or even just a new house. To make way for that house or that goal to come into your life, you're going to have to give some things up that are in its place at the moment. Yeah. So that is the second point. The second point is that people always focus on what they have to give up rather than where they're actually going. Okay, the third point of why people actually resist change is because they are afraid of being ridiculed. Okay, put a 1 in the chat if you have ever been like scared about what people might say about you, especially in this business at the start, because I know a lot of us can probably relate to that. So put a 1 in the chat. See, so a lot of us can actually relate to that. So with this, we have to stop being addicted to the approval of other people. You know, the worst addiction that we can have, especially in what we're doing, is the approval of other people. Because when you're obsessed with the approval of other people, you do things with the intention of seeking approval from someone else, rather than having the right intentions of doing it in the first place, okay? So if you don't think that other people will approve of it, most likely you're not going to do it. And that might be the one thing that could explode your business. That might be the one thing that is going to give you that breakthrough that you have been searching for so long. So when you stop caring what others think, that's when you're reaching like a level that is going to be like the level that you start to actually grow properly. Because when you stop caring what other people think and focus on where you're going, you can put all of your energy into where you're actually going instead of worrying about what people might have to say about you. So you can take things like meditating or reading or just doing things like that we get taught as people who are part of this business, right? Take these things and we can just make them cool, you know? Like, how many people do you know outside of this business that meditate, that read every day, that journal, that visualize? How many people do you actually know that do these things on a daily basis, or even have goals that are set for them? So we can actually use this to, you know, reach the people around us and start introducing it to them as well, and setting them on like their own little paths to success as well. So we can actually make it cool for them to do. Just change like your perspective of how you see these things, because you know, when you change your perspective on what you see actually changes. And also another point is that you can't let other people's fears and insecurities be installed onto you. So a lot of people, especially in this business, you know, people are skeptical, people don't think it's going to work. But that's because they don't believe in themselves that they can make it work for themselves. Because why else would they tell you that you can't make it work? Because they have no idea what you're actually capable of. So they are projecting their own fears onto you that they know that they couldn't make it work for themselves. But that doesn't mean that you can't make it work for yourself. So when people say things like that, don't let their own insecurities and fears be projected onto you. Because when you buy someone's opinion, you buy their lifestyle. That's why it's so important to only take advice from people that you would actually swap places with. You know, if people call you weird, literally, I haven't personally experienced that myself, but I know some people have. But you know, these things like journaling, meditating, if people call it weird, just say okay, but it's like obviously working, right? You're just gonna do more of it. So when you stop caring what other people have to say, that's when you're actually gonna see some sort of more elevation in your life. Because also you have to separate to elevate. If people around you are like, you know, taking the mick out of you or not supporting you for what you're doing, just take a step back and focus on your own success, you know? Then it also mentioned that this one's quite interesting actually. He said that most people haven't joined your business because they're scared about what other people are going to say about them. So really think about that, right? Some people will not join your business because they're still too scared about what other people are going to say about them. Imagine missing out on this opportunity to literally become a 7-figure earner and learn from millionaires around the world because you're scared about what people are going to say. Imagine that you said no to this opportunity because you were scared about what someone who lives a mediocre life is going to say about you when you know that you want more than that. Why would you let that stop you from where you want to be? Think about it, right? Think like really think about it. You're really going to miss an opportunity to change your whole life just because you're scared about what one person might say about you. Okay, so think about that. And then the last reason is that people feel like they're going to be alone in the process. So the process of this journey, right, it is going to get a bit lonely. We all know this because this can be a lone wolf journey. Whether you want it to be or not, there's going to be some times that you're alone in this business. So you have to learn to be alone so that you can appreciate the time that you spend with other people. Because when you start this business alone, like a lot of us have, even though we have like mentors or stuff like that, it can be like, you know, a bit lonely. But we have to remember that we have to go through this in order to, you know, develop ourselves, and so that when we're not alone anymore, we're actually surrounded by a whole group of savages, right? So when you're actually alone, you're going to learn a lot more about yourself, you know. Actually, I'll talk about this. Okay. One sec. Yeah, so through being alone as well, a lot of people are actually scared of being alone with themselves because they actually don't know how to be alone with themselves. You know, people need to, if you are actually one of the people that are scared to be alone with yourself, then really think about why that is, because why are you scared to be alone? Is it because you don't know like what to do by yourself? Is it because you need someone for like some sort of support? Is it because you don't actually know what you're doing on this journey yourself? If that's the case, then you need to figure out a way of becoming a little bit more independent. Because even though we're all part of a team, we are all responsible for our own success. Your mentor is not responsible for your success. Your downline is not responsible for your success. You are responsible for your own success in this business. So yeah, that's something to think about as well. So those are the 4 reasons why people actually resist change. I'm just going to go a bit more into detail about the lone wolf journey, as Nino called it, right? So what is the lone wolf journey? So basically, a lone wolf is someone who prefers to spend time alone rather than being in a group all the time. So this could be you if maybe I don't know, like for example, me, I know that I can work well with people, but I do like to have like my alone time, and I do like to work by myself quite a lot more than necessarily with a big group of other people. Like I can spend time with people, but then, I guess I call it like kind of introverted, but then I need to spend time by myself. But yeah, in regards to this journey, when you decide to become a lone wolf, you have essentially found your purpose, you found your calling, and this is when you start to leave your old life behind and become this new person that is gonna go out there and become a savage and get all the things that you want, right? Like I said earlier, your new life will cost you your old life, and this is where the lone wolf journey kicks in. So when you decide to make this decision to follow your purpose, there will be a time in your journey where, like I said, you're going to feel alone, you're going to feel separated, you're going to feel alienated maybe. And a lot of people might not understand you. Because basically what we're doing is essentially walking down the path that most people are actually afraid of. Like I said, as one of the points, like this is something that most people will feel awkward and self-conscious about because it's doing something new. People are scared of doing something that is outside of the norm or outside of what people normally are told to do, like which is, follow the traditional path of going to uni, working a job, doing this kind of thing. We are not doing that. So we are going against what most people have been accustomed to thinking is the only way to go through life. Okay? So a lot of people might not understand us. So a lot of people might not like the idea of this journey because, they're afraid of rejection from family and friends. They're afraid of the work it takes. They're afraid of the responsibility. So if this is relating to you and you are scared of rejection, if you're scared of the work, if you're scared of the responsibility, then this is something to take in mind, right? Your friends and family are not going to support you until strangers start to celebrate you. And that is because your friends and family, they see you for where you are right now, but strangers will actually see you for where you're going. Okay, so this is why it's so important to only listen to, like I said earlier, the people who have what you want, because you can actually accept and reject what you want into your subconscious mind. So if you are listening to the people who have what you want, of course you're going to accept it because you're going to be coachable and you're going to do what they say and you're going to listen to how they got to where they are right now. But if you're listening to the people who you wouldn't switch places with, if you're listening to people who don't necessarily don't necessarily have what you want in their lives, then you can actually reject their opinion. Okay? So the moment you accept their opinion, as I said earlier, is the moment you buy into their lifestyle. So think about that if you're scared of rejection from your family and friends. And in regards to the work it takes, consider this, right? Having a morning routine which will set in place the things that are like on the spiritual side, because we know the physical side is like 1%, the spiritual side is 99%. So if you're right in the spiritual, then essentially it can make the work a little bit easier. So through having a morning routine, see it this way, right? Every day you're going to have a set objectives of a set like daily method of operation that you're going to do every day. And when you have this is like laying bricks down every day. So every day you might lay a brick from like the stuff you do like physically for the business or just in life, right? So when you're doing this and you're laying the bricks, they're not going to stay in place unless there's cement. So if you're building every day without cement, then the wall is going to get knocked down so easily. The way that it stays in place is when you add the cement, right? And the cement is like the spiritual side. So when you have a morning routine, when you're focusing on like, keeping a high vibration, when you're focusing on being grateful, when you're focusing on what you actually want to happen in your life, you are adding that cement, which then like can solidify around the bricks you're laying every day, so you can eventually build on that. So that's how you can like make the workload a little bit easier through putting that cement down to hold the bricks in place, so that if something happens, and a challenge comes and hits you, the whole wall doesn't get knocked down because the cement is holding it in place. Do you get what I mean? So another quote to remember is that the hardest thing about getting to the top is actually getting through the crowd at the bottom. Okay? And then in regards to the responsibility, as I mentioned earlier, it's all on you. So some people might not be able to handle that. They might not be able to handle that we are responsible for our own failures and our own successes. If you're always thinking about what could go wrong, then how are you going to be responsible for having a team? How are you going to be able to build a team that is going to smash it, right? Because how can you focus on failing when you are responsible for everyone else? Like, just think about that. You have to be focused on winning all the time. You cannot let doubts, you cannot let insecurities, you cannot let fears cloud your mind and stop you from focusing on what you want. Because like we mentioned before, but it's so important, when you start focusing on the doubts, when you start focusing on the negatives, when you start focusing on the fears, that actually takes your thoughts away from what you want and you start focusing on the lack of it. And when you're focusing on the lack of it, that means you're actually not thinking about what you want anymore. You're thinking about what you don't want. And when you're focusing on what you don't want, that is what's going to come back into your experience. And that is why you might be experiencing the same thing over and over again, because you're focusing on what could go wrong. You're focusing on what you're insecure about, what could happen, instead of actually focusing on what's going to go well. Instead of telling yourself that you already have what you want, it just needs to show up in physical. But one of the main reasons why you should go on this journey and like get comfortable with being alone with yourself and do this is because with great power comes great responsibility, right? The reason why is good to, get comfortable with being alone. Like, this is the fourth reason why people resist change, is because they feel like they're going to be alone. However, when you master being alone, when you master handling what life throws at you, and when you master responding instead of reacting, so responding with logic instead of reacting with emotions to what challenges may come at you, this is the benefits that you can actually get. So the mental, emotional, and spiritual growth that you're going to experience. So just think about, since you started this journey, how much have you grown mentally, emotionally, spiritually? I know for myself, I have grown so much. Like, it's kind of mind-blowing actually. But think of how far you've already come, and think of how far you are going to go, right? And I already spoke about responding versus reacting. Like, think of how you handle situations now compared to how you used to. Think of how much more mature you have become in dealing with challenges, And also, by law of association, because we are literally surrounded by successful people, because we listen to them, because we learn from them every day, because we study what they used to do, by law of association, we are already where they are in the spiritual. So we are technically already six-figure earners. We are already multimillionaires, in the spiritual world. As long as you're applying what you're learning from these people, okay? And we're just literally waiting for the physical to catch up. So that is one of the reasons why this journey is going to be so great, because of the growth that we're going to experience. Think about it this way, right? Who do you know outside of what we're doing that has grown mentally, emotionally, and spiritually to the extent that you have in the last however long you've been in this business? Who do you know who's not doing this that has had the same amount of growth? Just think about that. Who do you know who has actually worked on themselves, who's actually tried to better their lives? Another benefit, I guess, of working on yourself, being alone, and getting comfortable with being alone on this journey is the unexpected doors that are going to open for you. If you knock on enough doors, eventually one will open up eventually. So you don't even know, like this is the crazy part, right? You don't even know the doors that are going to open to you in the future. You don't know like what circumstances, situations, and people and events that are going to happen in the future that will actually be an opportunity for you to grow from that as well. That's why we need to embrace the journey so much, because even though there can be some downs, look for the opportunity in that, and you might even find the door at that opportunity, at that challenge. Because when you get to like rock bottom, for example, that's often when the biggest blessing is gonna come to you. But I will say with that, keep in mind that there is there's a seed of opportunity in every adversity. Every adversity comes with a seed of opportunity. So with every challenge you're faced with everything that's thrown at you, make sure you find the gift in that challenge as soon as possible, because that is the purpose of the challenge. When you see it in this way, everything gets so much easier, because even though the challenge is hard, you know how to handle it, you know what you're dealing with. Because when you find the gift within that challenge, I promise you the challenge is going to disappear. So look for the gift as soon as possible when you're faced with a challenge, and use that to grow. Okay. And then the last point is the thrill of unknown territory. So this comes back to being uncomfortable again. So when you're in the unknown, and when you get to that stage where you are getting uncomfortable, like I mentioned, when you're staying outside of your comfort zone, when you're not going back in every time it gets a little bit hard, this is when you will experience breakthrough after breakthrough after breakthrough. You'll be happy every day. You'll be happy. You'll start doing things that you've never done, so that you can learn from it and get things that you've never had. And then you step into this infinite field of possibilities. So you have to do things that you've never done to get things you've never had. And that is why everyone needs to write a list of things that make them uncomfortable and then start doing them straight away. Okay? So put some 7s in the chat if you got value from today. Okay, cool. So yeah, that's the end of the session today. Thank you everyone for jumping on. I hope everyone got value from it. Same time, same place next week. You know where it is, Waffle Wednesday. Let's go.